Hi, this is Rosemary with Upper 90 Logos and Embroidery, and I was contacted by one of my colleagues about how to do a pre-quilted block for embroidery, and just to have it that way we can do this a lot. So what prompted that was Kimberbell was doing that on one of their recent projects, and they offered quilting designs to go behind the design. So if you have a luminaire, and even if you have a stellaire, you can do this on your own and have that template ready. So with this open, I'm going to hit my design center, and I'm going to create a box. So I can leave, well, actually I'll change this to a running stitch, and we can make it any color. We can leave it in black, that's fine. And say okay. I'm going to go to my stamp tool right here and select a box. So for instance, this Kimberbell design finishes out at 4.5 by 6.5. So I want that quilted area to be smaller, that way I can cut. And we're actually going to make this a placement line for our batting. So I'm going to go to size, and I'm going to make it a little bigger or a little taller, and actually I'm going to make it 6.25 because that's going to be the seam allowance to piece all these blocks together. And the same thing here is going to be 4.25. Oh, once I learn to, this is kind of speedy. Perfect. And there you go. So now I have my box, and I'm going to press next. And that's perfect. I don't have to do anything else to it. It's already a color, and it's already in the running stitch. And I'll press set, and I want to go into the screen. So there you go. There's step one. Now I want to make another one, because this one is going to sew on the stabilizer, and it's going to stay there. So I want, that's the placement stitch, so I want a tack down stitch. So let's go to edit and hit duplicate. Perfect. Now I have two of them. I need them one right on top of the other, but before I do that, I'm going to change the color and make it whatever color, because I want it to stop in between each step. That design is still selected. I'm going to go to size and just hit the button right here in the middle, and it is not doing it. Let's select the next one. There we go. Now that's selected. And size and middle. Perfect. Right on top of each other. So if you go to this little hoop tool right here, this is one of my favorite things on this machine. You have a slow redraw function. So when you hit that, it's going to simulate the stitching. So you press play down here, and there's the placement, and the tack down will be right on top of that. Perfect. And then you can close that. All right, so that is step one on how to do that. So we are tacking down our batting to the stabilizer. So we created a placement stitch and a tack down stitch for our batting. So now the second part to this is we want to create a placement stitch and a tack down stitch for our fabric. So this is what we have on the screen is in embroidery, because we've already created our placement and tack down for our stabilizer, and that's the size of it right there. So I'm going to add, and this time I'm going to not add anything from up here. I'm actually going to go back to my design center. So instead of starting over again, you're actually adding my design center, and we're going to go through the same thing again. So I'm going to change to a line and make it a different color. I just made it that color right there and said okay. Create a box from the stamp tool, say okay, and resize it. This time I'm going to size it bigger. So I'm going to go up to about 6.6, maybe even 6.7, and reduce the width of it to 4.7. There we go. And say OK. So that is perfect. And we are good to go. Press next. And it's saying it is a running stitch, and set it. It's going to convert it to embroidery and say OK. And it is right there. That's the next one that's going to happen, and we'll press edit and duplicate it right there. Now I have another one. Let us change our color. Why not that one? Press OK. And let's go and select it. Make sure. There we go. Size, and place it in the middle. Perfect. All right. Let's take a look. I should have 4. So if I go to my edit, I should have 4 of them on here. That first one is going to be that batting placement, batting tack down, fabric placement, fabric tack down. Perfect. So that is the second part of this one. So the last part of this is we're going to add stippling in the middle, and we can add a couple of different things. We can either add stippling or add a design from my design center. So again, we're going to add my design center, and let's change this box to no line or no stitching. We're just going to draw a box so we can fill it with color. And notice, if I undo this, if we go back to one of the stitches, you can select a color. The minute you select no stitches, it locks down the colors. You can't do anything. And just say OK. And you can see on top, it's blank. You're going to go to your stamp button and press your box. Say OK. I'm going to make that box, I'm going to size it again to 6.25. Oops. And reduce the width to 4.25. Perfect. All right, say OK. Now I'm going to fill this box with what I need. So I'm going to click on this right here, and I can select either a fill stitch, stippling stitch, or a design. We're going to do a stipple stitch, and we can keep it in red. It's fine. Say OK. Now, this is where a lot of people get a little messed up about this, and even I will do this, because if I use the paintbrush tool and swipe it across, I've done that. So I'm not filling the box with color, and that's exactly what I want to do. I'm going to undo. Now I'm going to press the bucket, because the bucket does it, and I'm going to click right in the center of that square or that rectangle. Boom. There's our stippling. I'm going to press next. I can preview, or actually this will let me see what my stippling will look like. Right now that's what it looks like. Say you want a little less, you can do in the second button here and increase the spacing and say OK. And there you go. That looks pretty good. Now I'm ready to go. I can press set. Hold on a minute. Oh, we're correct. And press set. And it's going to go into our embroidery section right there. And there is my last step. That'll happen. So it's great. We go back up here to our hoop view and go to our slow redraw or a stitch reanimation, whatever you want to call it, and press play. placement, tack down, placement for your fabric, tack down for your fabric, and then it is going to do our stippling. And now you are ready, and you can save this as a template for any one of those blocks that's going to be cut down to 6.5 by 4.5. So it's brilliant. So now all you have to do is save it into your memory, and you can save it on your machine, and you are good to go. So this has been Rosemary with Upper 90 Logos and Embroidery, and I just created a quilting template for our embroidery blocks. Have a great day. So let's talk about one more option for filling our design with either stipple or a design. So on the Luminaire, you can fill it with a built-in design. So we're going to click on Add and My Design Center, because that's where those live. And I'm going to go up here to our line tool, and I am going to press No Stitches. I'm just going to draw a box or create a box right here in our stamp tool. Say OK, and let's size this again to 6.25 and reduce the width to 4.25. Perfect. Awesome. So let's go to our fill section right here. And remember, we did the stipple stitch. This time we're going to do our design stitches. And we're going to select from one of the many designs that are in. Just look at that. How awesome is that? Oh, and there's a little preview of some stitches once you get the upgrade to this, and you can add to that. Ooh, let's do something fairly simple. Ooh, how about these nice clamshells? So if we click on the clamshells and say OK, we'll keep it in red and say OK. And remember, the bucket does it. Click in there, and there are your clamshells. Say Next, and we can size them bigger or smaller. So say if I want them a little bigger, let's say OK, and it'll, yeah, I like that. I can change the direction of them. I can do a random, I can have an outline. I'm going to have that off. I don't want an outline. Or I can do a random shift, and this makes it all kind of funky, so you can plus or minus it. I'll do 2, and kind of distorts the image, so that's not what I want. So I'm going to go down, back to 0, say OK, and regenerate it, and my clamshells look awesome. I can position, change the position of it. Obviously, clamshells, that's a pretty easy position to have. And my last one is the thickness. Either I want it like a triple stitch, or I want it to be a single stitch, which is exactly what I want. That's one of the new updates on the machine. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to set it into my embroidery pattern that I already created. And there is the sequence of events. The tack down for the, or the placement for the batting, tack down for the batting, placement for the fabric, tack down for the fabric, and then quilting that inner sandwich, the inner part of that. So if we go back into hoop view and go and hit the slow redraw, 1, 2, fabric placement, fabric tack down, and then it will start quilting the inside. Perfect. So that's just another option that you can use when you are setting up a block, a pre-made block or pre-quilted block for this. So this is, again, I'm Rosemary with Upper 90 Logos Embroidery, and that's how you set up your quilting template for your embroidery blocks. Thank you.